All right, welcome to the Two Sons podcast. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope all of you guys are having a great week so far. Today, Luke and I are going to be talking about episode 3 of House of the Dragon, as well as the first 2 episodes of the Lord of the Rings series. That will be a separate video and a separate release, probably tomorrow. I probably won't wait too long since new episodes are coming out every week. But House of the Dragon really picked up in intensity this week.
Yeah.
I thought we had our first kind of like classic Game of Thrones moment at the end with Daemon Targaryen just wrecking the crab feeder.
It was incredible.
Just wrecking the crab feeder.
No, and what blew my mind is the crab feeder's already dead. And everyone gave me a huge warning, like, hey, if you get really interested in a character, expect them to die. And let's be honest, like the crab feeder is probably going to die of his skin cancer pretty soon because that's raging. He should have gotten that checked out. But yeah, man, he already died. I can't believe it. But Daemon wrecked him, and it was incredible.
Yes,
I assume he's going to live, even though he was shot with arrows probably 5 times.
He's gonna be fine. I want to get to that a little bit later because there was kind of like an interesting pathway through this episode. I saw a couple of different themes. Like, first of all, the hunt was funny, and just like Viserys is like, they're hunting this stag, and the stag is very big, and they think it might be this like famous white stag, this like kind of creature of legend. And at the end, they've got him trapped. And it's clear that Viserys is like depressed because it's not the white stag.
Right.
But like I'm watching it and I'm like, dude, this is embarrassing for you.
No, it is.
They're just holding this creature in place,
literally
for you to stab
tied
him.
up,
Yeah.
right? And it's like squirming in agony, right? And it's this huge, beautiful stag, and then he's just gonna go up and stab it with a gold spear. It's so ridiculous.
And it still took him 2 times.
I know, it's the most ridiculous thing. He's all depressed and he's all hungover.
Yeah,
dude. And like, what a contrast too, because last week or the week before, I was talking about that bow hunter Cameron Haynes and like how he dedicates his life to just being like the ultimate hunter. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sure any real hunter watching that scene was probably just like, oh my gosh, this is the worst.
This is embarrassing.
Yeah,
it's like, and the second stab thing must be like the equivalent of like trying to blow out your birthday cake candles and like failing.
Well, and then and
everyone's at the table like, oh,
right. And then the actual hunter's like, yeah, right there to the left. Yeah. To the left is where the lung is.
Do you remember the first spot that I showed you? The spot I showed you before you missed and hit over to the right? Yeah, that back over there. That's where you're supposed to stab.
You stabbed his leg.
His upper thigh is not going to kill him.
That's not where his heart is or his lung. You just stabbed his intestines. That's a problem.
It's funny to me too how like it's kind of like this glorified like glamping trip.
Oh, I know.
Where they all go and they kind of like just move their city little by little out into the Kingswood and oh god,
it's like let's rid the forest of anything living for now, and then we'll just move on.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
So wild. That hunting scene was crazy.
So the general dynamic though throughout the first 2/3 of the episode was okay. We have Aegon Targaryen II, who is the new heir, and there's like this clearly bristling hatred going on between Rhaenyra and what's her face, the
Hightower.
Alicent Hightower.
Yeah, Alicent Hightower.
And but clearly Alicent is like bummed about it, which in her defense, like she was forced to do all this by her father.
She's forced to be stepmom.
Yeah, she's forced by her father. So it's not like she, signed up for any of this, but clearly Rhaenyra doesn't see it that way.
No, and Rhaenyra is just being like just true form teenage girl.
Oh, full teenage girl. Just like,
leaning hard into it.
Exactly. And then obviously the dynamic of everybody and their brother trying to pressure the king to name Aegon Targaryen the heir.
Right.
And it kind of has very similar vibes to the second episode where everyone's pushing him in the same direction, which is almost inherently making him want to go the other. And I actually really liked because Viserys is an interesting character, and you pointed this out in the first episode. You're like, he's weak. And I think you're right. But I don't think...
He's weak for a king.
Yeah, he's weak for... He's just not meant to do what he's doing.
Right.
And like, you almost are like sympathetic towards him where it's like...
I know.
He really does care. He really does work hard. he just hates the politics.
He does, and he has
hates
lights of
it.
shining moments too, where he does make a good decision, or he does back himself up, or he does do something that's completely reasonable. Who's I forget his name, but he's one of his advisors, and when the king's drinking and he's had a lot of wine, he walks up to him, and then the king's like, "What, are you going to tell me that your son is the best heir for my daughter?" And he's like, "Actually, no,"
because he said, and he's the one who recommended Corlys Valerian's son, the one that's fighting, the one who ends up riding the dragon at the end.
Exactly.
Very interesting. That I thought was a major foreshadowing towards him and Rhaenyra potentially being a match. But
I see.
But then there's it's clear that Sir Criston Cole and her actually have more vibes together.
They've got great vibes, but he's kind of a nobody, right?
Yeah, but he's a nobody, exactly.
But the king did say that she would have the opportunity to pick whom she wants to, which would be a huge being like a young girl. Can you imagine how good that would feel for your dad to tell you that, hey, you can marry whoever you want to, which sounds crazy.
Especially
that's what we do
in nobility.
Yeah. So that's what we do nowadays, right? It's very obvious to us, but for her, she her whole entire personality changed as soon as he told her that, which is cool.
Yeah. So it essentially culminates and it was such a weird scene because literally, it reminded me, gosh, there's another TV series. I didn't watch it. I only saw a few episodes of it, but it's the one where the dad has the 3 children and he ends up dying, and the show keeps bouncing forward and back to when the dad's alive to when the kids are all grown up. I can't remember what the show is called, but in that show, there's an episode towards the end of season 1. All of you who are listening probably know exactly what I'm talking about, and I can't even think of the name of the show. But towards the end, there's kind of this dramatic buildup with all these ways that you think he's going to die. Because he ends up dying, I think, in a house fire trying to rescue kids or something. But it's he's drinking and driving, and you're like,
oh, I see.
He's going to get in an accident. You're like, or he's going to run into this, or and it kind of reminded me of that where they're doing that with Viserys. It's right. Is he going to die from an infection? No, he's not going to die.
His fingers are a problem.
Yes.
Those are looking pretty gross.
Well, he had gloves on. Are the fingers messed up?
Did you notice that? So,
no.
So as he's dealing with his hangover and as Alicent's talking to him in his chambers, as he's drinking his wine, both of his 5th and 4th fingers are gone. They're just nuts, and they're black.
Just gone. Okay, that I didn't see that. That's interesting. So, but then it's kind of similar in that scene. It's he's getting really drunk.
Right.
It's he's getting angry drunk.
Right.
People are pissing him off. What's going to happen? And then it's even the hunting scene. You're like, is this thing going to just jerk to the side and just stab the king in the neck with one of his antlers?
He has to die relatively soon, I feel like.
You would think.
For the show progression.
But that whole vibe throughout that episode is insane. And and the whole time you're just man, at any moment, something terrible is going to happen.
Right.
And then nothing happens.
I know.
That was interesting. But then that culminates with the next day he's sober and he's talking to Rhaenyra. And he uses the word supplant. I think he used the word supplant. I might be wrong about that, but he uses basically a synonym and promises Rhaenyra that he's not going to take the throne away from her.
Right.
Which I thought was significant.
It is.
And also highly implies death.
Because there's at least 4 people that we know of that could make a claim to the throne. Right.
Yeah. Well, so Daemon, obviously Aegon.
Yeah,
and then Rhaenyra,
and then the oh my gosh, we were just talking about his family, but the shipping family.
Oh, Corlys Valerian. Yeah. So essentially, there's all these claims, which is kind of it's kind of a similar vibe to what happens in the first one. Which, by the way, juxtaposed, we see Viserys do that wimpy ass whatever you want to call that version of hunting. Robert Baratheon was just him, his a guy who carried the wine, one member of his Kingsguard and one other dude I can't remember, and they're all just trudging through the damn forest. And just Robert's got his spear. And then when the wild boar comes up, he's like, "Get out of the way! I got it."
Just true man stuff.
Yeah,
be a man.
Exactly. So yeah, that's the difference. But it's a similar type of deal because when Robert Baratheon ends up dying, there's kind of or when he gets sick, when he's on his deathbed and he's infected, everyone's scrambling to think what's going to happen. Renly freaks out and is we can't give it to my brother Stannis, so it's got to be me. So he runs south and starts making allies with like Highgarden and all this stuff in the Reach, and just forms this big army of 100,000 people. Stannis Baratheon gets the letter from Ned Stark, and that tells that the Lannisters are engaging in incest and that none of these heirs are real. And then Stannis is like, well, it's mine then, you know? And then meanwhile up north, you've got Robb Stark that's like king in the north, you know? And Cersei's like, this, like, it's going to be my son. And then Daenerys Targaryen is over in Essos, like just messing stuff up, so it's like everyone is just like, it's mine, you know.
I know, which blows my mind, because like it's like, who actually wants to be like have that job? Like,
I know.
I'm like all these shows confirm the fact that I don't want to be king or president.
Oh, dude,
are you kidding me?
They say like there's like that money and power thing. Like I think everybody has a certain amount of desire for money, for if not for material possessions, then for comfort.
Yeah.
You know. But like power has never been a thing that has been interesting to me.
And
but
huge decisions, especially when someone's just waiting to kill you all the time.
Oh, dude,
how many thousands of people would just want to kill, you know, the king in order to like have his job?
Dude, just the regular day-to-day fear of being in that position is
the
ridiculous.
Backstabbing. Like we see that with the Hightower family with like Otto, right? And how like he's like definitely making a push for his family to start getting in charge.
Dude, Otto's a creeper, man. I do not like that guy. But I picked up that vibe on him pretty quickly.
Which is funny because I did not. Like the first time I met him, like, oh yeah, the king's hand, you know, he must be legit guy. But then you also called that with Daemon as well. You said that you liked him a lot, and I was like, he's a little freaky, right? And then now he's probably my favorite character.
He's interesting, and I want to get into that. So basically, at Aegon Targaryen's second birthday party, which results in the hunt,
just an absolute banger.
That's the part of
the kid parties hard.
But after that, or during that party, some member of the council comes running up to him and says, like, hey, in the Stepstones, they're in tough shape. They only have like 14 days worth of food. Like, they're in big trouble, blah, 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 all this stuff. So, and of course, Viserys is like, dude, like,
we're partying.
Yeah, like, what? So, but eventually they manage to convince him to send aid, and he does, in the form of like it's not even really a condescending letter. It's more of like a big brother, like, hey, little brother, I don't want to watch you fail, so I'm sending help kind of thing.
But it was kind of a weak amount of help from what it seemed like, right? Like, did you get that vibe? I don't know how many ship units.
Two ships and 2,000 soldiers.
I thought it was like 10 ships or something. I could be wrong.
It was some small force. It was a meager force.
It didn't seem like it was going to be enough for whatever it is, because Daemon was obviously pissed off about it and just beat the crap out of the messenger.
Well, to give you some perspective, like, the Robb Stark's army at the beginning of Game of Thrones is 20,000. The army that Renly Baratheon is working with is like 100,000. Presumably, because they say that there's 2 Lannisters for every 1 Stark. Presumably, the Lannisters have like 40,000. So a force from King's Landing of 2,000 soldiers that's meager.
In the form of ships too, which like that intro scene where the ships were trying to go through that passage and they're just getting taken out by the fireballs. Yeah. It's like, obviously ships aren't working, and then they're trying to do the essentially bombing runs with the dragons, but they would just go into their holes every time, so the dragon couldn't do anything. So
that's the dynamic, the military dynamic at play. Is like Daemon thought he'd be able to go over there and mess them up with his dragon, but every time he attacks, the crab feeder's army just disappears into the caves,
right,
and they can escape,
right. And again, I'm so surprised that villain is already gone. Like, and I'm kind of bummed, because I really liked the
character.
Super interesting in the way, and it was like, obviously it was like extremely violent, but like the way that he would kill people was really interesting. Like, where he just essentially tie them to
it's kind of like crucifixion on a beach.
It's kind of a crucifixion on a beach vibe, and it was like super intense, but also it was just so classic Game of Thrones, where that guy gets nailed by the crab feeder, and then he's like, Daemon, like my king or whatever, and then Daemon's dragon just squashes him. I was like, come
save me, Daemon.
I was like, that unsettled me so much. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so Game of Thrones.
So Daemon gets pissed off at the messenger and just pounds his head in for no particular reason.
Right.
And then like there was some sort of mention early in the episode when they were kind of talking about strategy to beat the crab feeder, where they basically say like, we need to find a way to bait them to come out of the caves.
Right.
And then somebody straight up suggests like, well, it should be Daemon because they won't come out if they think the dragon's coming.
Oh yeah.
And it's known from the second episode when Corlys is talking to Daemon, he goes like, we weren't dragon riders the way that the Targaryen family was. We were seafaring people, you know,
Right.
like we were sailors. And so presumably that's common knowledge throughout the realm. So like essentially, if Daemon Targaryen surrenders the way that he did, they can assume that the dragon's not coming. You know what I mean?
So was that Daemon's dragon though at the end of the episode?
Yes. So if you
gave him the
look
keys?
throughout that entire scene, so Daemon fakes surrendering and then does this like mad sprint to just
I know.
draw all sorts of attention.
No arrow can seek him.
Yeah, he's just arrow dodging, man.
Yeah.
And during that instance, if you look, they keep flashing back to the crab feeder, and he's doing
And he
two
keeps
things.
looking up at the sky, right?
Yeah, he's doing two things. He's looking at the sky, looking for the dragon, like towards the edge of the ridge, and then he's also like commanding troops to go out.
Right, but he's doing like weird like twitch things as he commands.
That's
them.
like
It's
his
super
signals.
bizarre.
Yeah, which is really weird. But then eventually,
Lola is on one.
eventually, what ends up happening is they get enough of the soldiers to come out of the caverns. Boom! Here comes the dragon.
Yeah.
Corlys's son is riding the dragon, which is interesting. 'Cause
Right.
It's the first Valerian that we've seen ride a dragon, and then out of nowhere, the Valerians charge into the battle. We get to see Corlys and presumably his brother.
I think it's his brother.
Just wrecking dudes.
That was so cool.
On the beach, yeah, which was super cool. And they were both using like these weird like spear, like halberds almost, like spears that have like an axe on the end of them and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that was like, you know, Game of Thrones does this really interesting thing because I've noticed this as I've rewatched. I'm like, Carly and I are cruising through Game of Thrones. We're like second half of season 2 now.
Wow.
And it's so good. And like one of the things they do in Game of Thrones that I think is really interesting is they will skip over what they perceive to be not inconsequential battles. So it'll be like, they'll show the scene right before the battle and then they'll show the scene right after the battle. And the first time you see it happen, it can come off as like, it's okay. The first time it'll happen, it'll make you think like, oh, like they're being lazy. But really what they do is they save their production for the important battles.
Because it's incredibly expensive to get 200 people fighting each other with explosions and
Well, and then they just put a great deal of effort into it. And so like what'll happen is
they're trying to do
like,
it right.
Exactly. Like presumably there have been dozens and dozens of battles between the crab feeder and the Valerian forces.
Right.
And it's like, but they show the penultimate one. And they'll do that where it's like the Starks and the Lannisters will battle a million times and they won't actually show any of the fights.
Right.
But then it'll be like Stannis Baratheon sailing his fleet into Blackwater Bay to attack King's Landing.
Yeah.
That one, we're seeing everything.
Yeah,
you know
let's
what I
check that
mean?
out.
Or like this is the Battle of Winterfell. We're going to see everything. This is the Battle of the Bastards. We're going to see everything. Like they do a really good job of like picking their spots for when to really dive into they pick their spots about when to really dive into the production of the battle scenes. And that was an important one for them to show. And I thought it was awesome. I thought it was
incredible as well. At the very end, as Daemon's walking out with the severed body of the crab feeder, did you know that it was him carrying the crab feeder, or did you think it was the swapped? Because when I originally saw the long hair, I thought it was the crab feeder, and I thought Daemon had been severed, which was super crazy.
I thought because I kind of picked up on like the purpose of that scene. Like the purpose of that scene was like, Daemon and Corlys had been messing around in this war and not getting anything done. And Viserys basically called them out on it. It was like, fine, I'll come help you guys since you guys seem incapable of figuring this out.
But again, like they were about to die anyways, and he's sending ships. How fast could that be? You know what I mean?
Well, so presumably the message came and the ships and the message were sent at the same time.
Oh, I see.
So presumably the ships wouldn't be too much further behind the message. But anyway, like I thought the whole vibe of the scene was basically like Daemon Targaryen being like, nope, this ends today.
Yeah.
And so I when he went into those caves after him, all I could think is like, he's going to go in there and just mess this dude up. And,
I see.
And I think like it's an interesting, because so where do we go from here?
Yeah.
My guess is that there's going to be a good amount of support among specific houses for Daemon because of his strength and willingness to do what Viserys could not do.
Right.
You know what I mean? And because we have to, again, we have to go with what we know. And what we know is that there is no female on the Iron Throne until Cersei towards the end of Game of Thrones. So from that standpoint, we can safely assume that Rhaenyra is not getting on that seat. So it's either going to be Aegon or it's going to be Daemon or someone else. And so I thought like in a weird way, like, because you got to think, if you're a Valerian, what are you thinking about Daemon right now? Yeah. You're like, I would run through a wall for this dude.
Right.
Like,
this
I would do anything.
Hard.
This dude goes hard. So like from that standpoint, like they're going to follow that dude.
Between Daemon and Rhaenyra, who's your favorite between the two? Not like, okay, actually, who do you think deserves it the most?
I think Rhaenyra would be the best leader because I think she's a better balance between the toughness of Daemon and the lack of insanity.
Right.
So like one of the things, there's a scene in episode or season 2 of Game of Thrones where because basically what's his face Joffrey is just out of control, like just being a total prick, and there's a hilarious scene in there where Tyrion's bodyguard guy, the guy that's like traveling with him throughout the entire show, is just like Tyrion's like, is there any cure for this? Is there anything we could do? And like the guy's just like, there's no cure for being a cunt. But like, so Joffrey's just messing things up, and Tyrion is talking with Cersei.
Yeah.
And he goes like, and they're talking about how Joffrey's out of control. And then Tyrion basically like hints like, well, incest. And Cersei's like, well, maybe this is the price for our sins. And then she goes like, you know, they used to say, what was the old saying? Every time a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin. And it was because like it was culturally accepted that half of the Targaryens were freaking insane, you know. And it's just funny because like you just see it's like for every Viserys there's a Daemon, you know what I mean? And
so,
and it's kind of like the cool, but I think Rhaenyra is like a better balance between the two.
I do too. And it wasn't long ago when you and I were all stoked about Rhaenyra's move, getting the dragon egg back from Daemon, and you know, that was a power play too. So yeah, it's those, but at the end of the day, both of them have the strength of what it takes to be king or queen. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
At least the strength portion of it. And, you know, and for the record, Viserys was good in other areas, you know, in terms of compassion and like measured decision-making process, even if it's too measured or too compassionate, you know?
Right. Do you think that, so Rhaenyra kills the boar, but it's really not her kill in my book, because Cole is the one that actually probably fatally wounds it, and then she kind of finishes it off, right? Do you think that carries any weight for the rest of the season, or do you think that was just kind of an interesting scene?
So that's the last scene we got to talk about. First of all, Carly was talking trash about Rhaenyra too, and was like she didn't actually beat that animal. Right. It was Sir Criston Cole, and I'm like, dude, she was sitting by a campfire when this thing bull rushed her, and like she hadn't even gotten off her butt yet. Like, dude, like even Sir Criston, who was staring in the direction of it, got caught off guard and knocked over by it. You know, and then after he mounts Rhaenyra, then Sir Criston comes in and kills it. You know,
the word mount that you just used,
just full mount.
Attacked is another synonym that could have been used there.
Could have gone with anything else. But so they run into the white stag at the end on the hill.
I know.
And I thought that was really interesting because it
was nature's balance, right? Like nature has a way of trying to balance things. Even in our world here, like nature always tries to balance things into some capacity. And
for sure.
That's kind of the vibe that I got. It was like, hey, you're the true heir is what the vibe I was getting. Yeah.
Because Viserys, he's depressed that the stag that they caught is just a regular old stag.
Again, he did not deserve to kill any white stag.
No, he did not.
Yeah.
But like, it's that's like the mirror image there is like, meanwhile Rhaenyra ends up running into the stag. It's like the biggest sign ever of that particular dynamic.
Right.
And I don't know if Rhaenyra ever ends up telling anybody about it. That's the interesting part.
What do you think the symbolism is with her not trying to kill it? Because it can be taken a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I took it more as like I thought it was more of like you probably wouldn't like this, but I thought it was kind of like an anti-hunting stance.
I see. Like
I think it
more
was kind
modern
of like
take on
like a respect for life.
I see.
You know, that kind of thing.
I see.
Yeah.
I think that's a good take. I think another potential take is not doing something that's unneeded. Right. So just because there's a big, beautiful white stag doesn't mean you have to go kill it. Right. And for whatever it's worth, I'm very not. I'm not against hunting. But
I don't have a hunting opinion.
You don't?
No, because I never did it. I never did it much growing up, and I'm not I'm certainly not involved with PETA. So
I see. I think if you eat meat, you should be cool for hunting.
That's my thing is I'm cool for hunting, but I don't have hunting takes.
Right.
I don't have like a. Let me tell you what I think about stag hunting. Like I'm not that
white
guy.
Stag hunting in particular. Actually. So I think that was probably the big one. Is just like just because she could kill it didn't mean she would have to, and that would symbolize her abilities to make good decisions down the road if she ever was queen.
Exactly. I agree.
So I think that was probably the big take for me. And there's one other take that I was just thinking of, but I can't even remember it. Maybe it was her also foreshadowing her turning down the throne.
Oh, that's interesting. Because it's bad for the realm because all the men in the realm lose their freaking minds.
Right. So like if she would have gotten this stag and pulled it in, that would have been a huge deal. People would have been really, really excited about that. Shit, they were stoked about the boar kill. So which they had killed. It looked like 100 of them.
That was a power move, and Rhaenyra just came back into the city just covered in blood with a dead boar. Yeah.
But like that also could have been like a vibe, like okay, like if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be, and we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be just in general, it'll be really interesting to see the direction they go there. Otto definitely overplayed his hand with the whole like, you see, Your Grace, this is a sign. It's the white stag, and it's well, then you just attached the legitimacy of your grandson as the heir to the stag. And
to this animal,
and it's not real,
Right.
Did you have anything else from this episode?
No, that was it.
All right, that's all we have for today, guys. We appreciate your support as always, and we will see you next time.
Thanks a lot.